Senate panel votes to hold Fauci in contempt of Congress. A Senate committee vote moved the dispute over Anthony Fauci's testimony from hearing room confrontation to a possible Justice Department referral, according to Courthouse News, Reuters, The New York Times, and The Washington Post. Reuters says Senator Rand Paul asked federal prosecutors to act after the panel cited contempt, while PBS framed the issue around Fifth Amendment testimony and what can happen next. The practical question is not punishment today. It is whether prosecutors accept a referral, decline it, or ask for more record support. Viewers should watch for a dated Justice Department response, a formal Senate transmission, or a new hearing notice that shows whether the vote becomes an enforceable case. Until one of those records appears, the confirmed development is a congressional escalation with legal follow-through still unresolved, not an immediate criminal sentence or final judgment. For Item 1, the practical lens is process. Subpoenas, referrals, prosecutor discretion, and public committee records will decide what changes for institutions and viewers, not social media claims or partisan shorthand. The stakes are accountability, prosecutorial independence, and whether a committee vote produces a durable legal record rather than another round of statements. With viewers checking the chain from committee paperwork to prosecutor response to final docket result today. Could Fauci face legal punishment after the contempt vote? Reuters, The Hill, PBS, The Washington Post, and NBC report that Republican senators are pressing the Justice Department after a committee contempt vote connected to Anthony Fauci's testimony. Any punishment question is conditional because contempt referrals do not automatically become prosecutions, and prosecutors still decide whether evidence, intent, and legal defenses support a case. PBS also notes the Fifth Amendment issue, which means any next step is likely to turn on procedure as much as politics. The viewer checkpoint is a dated Justice Department decision, a court filing, or a Senate document that states exactly what charge, if any, officials pursue. For now, the reliable takeaway is narrower than the headline question. Legal exposure is being debated, but a sentence is not on the table unless prosecutors and a court move first. For Item 2, the practical lens is sequence. Referral, prosecutorial review, possible charging decision, and then court process, each one requiring a public record before consequences become real. That sequence matters for accountability, because each formal step changes the risk from political pressure into reviewable legal action affecting named witnesses and agencies. With viewers checking the chain from Senate referral to prosecutor response to court calendar before assuming punishment, today publicly carefully before headlines. Judge dismisses reflecting pool vandalism case against Olympian. Courthouse News, Bloomberg Law, The Washington Post, and The New York Times report that a charge tied to damage allegations at the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool was dismissed. The legal significance is that the case shifts from accusation to court disposition, leaving the written order and any follow-up filings as the most important public records. This is also a location-specific story. The reflecting pool is the National Mall landmark, not a generic decorative pool, and the visual uses that public setting as context. Viewers should watch whether prosecutors appeal, refile a narrower count, or let the dismissal stand without further action. Until the docket changes, the confirmed fact is the judge's dismissal, while broader claims about intent, liability, or political meaning require the court record and named reporting to support them. For Item 3, the practical lens is docket status. Dismissal, any appeal window, and whether prosecutors choose another procedural route, not a replay of the original allegation. That consequence matters for public accountability because a dismissal can reset incentives for police, prosecutors, memorial managers, and defendants watching similar cases. With viewers checking the chain from dismissal order to appeal window to any replacement filing in the public docket before public agencies, change practice now safely tomorrow. Trump signs orders to limit U.S. birthright citizenship, despite Supreme Court ruling. Reuters, The Guardian, Al Jazeera, USA Today, and the Japan Times report that new executive actions target birthright citizenship after earlier Supreme Court limits shape the legal landscape. The immediate stakes are institutional. Agencies must interpret the orders, challengers can seek injunctions, and courts decide whether the policy survives. The visual stays on executive and court context rather than inventing a campaign scene or a public figure close-up. Viewers should watch the next docket entry, agency guidance, and any emergency ruling that tells families, states, and federal offices what rule actually applies. Until those records arrive, the development is a policy push into active constitutional litigation, not a settled nationwide change in citizenship practice. For Item 4, the practical lens is implementation. Federal forms, agency instructions, emergency injunctions, and appellate review will determine what families and state offices actually face. Item 4 also needs state-level watch points, because registrars, benefit offices, and courts will translate the order into daily paperwork only after guidance is written. That consequence matters for citizenship administration, because temporary confusion can affect hospitals, schools, benefits offices, and families before appeals settle the rule. with viewers checking the chain from executive text to agency guidance to injunctions before treating the policy as settled. Trump may get a big new tariff authority. Axios reports the possibility of expanded tariff power, while other coverage tracks refunds, India trade pressure, and the broader cost of import taxes. The practical impact would land at ports, customs desks, supply chains, and consumer prices, which is why the key question is how much authority courts or Congress leave with the White House. Los Angeles Times coverage of tariff refunds shows that businesses already face real money consequences from policy reversals and litigation. Viewers should watch for customs guidance, a court order, or formal negotiating text that changes what importers pay. Until that appears, the story is about possible leverage and legal room to maneuver, not a finished tariff schedule. For Item 5, the practical lens is cost transmission. Importers, retailers, manufacturers, and negotiating partners will respond only when tariff instructions become concrete and legally durable. Item 5 also needs business watch points, because refund claims, import contracts, and retaliation threats can alter incentives before consumers see shelf price changes. That consequence matters for prices and bargaining power, because tariff authority can shift costs among importers, exporters, households, and negotiating governments quickly, with viewers checking the chain from authority ruling to customs bulletin to import price response before assuming broad consumer impact in trade channels later tomorrow. U.S. stocks edge lower as oil prices rise and more earnings reports roll in. BNN, Bloomberg, and regional market wires report a softer session as oil prices and company results shaped investor sentiment. The market signal is broad but not mysterious. Higher energy costs can pressure inflation expectations, while earnings reports tell investors whether companies can protect margins. Because the move is measured, the viewer should focus on closing prices, sector leadership, and whether energy gains persist into the next session. Watch the next inflation data, central bank commentary, and major company guidance for confirmation. Until then, this is a cautious market read driven by oil and earnings, not a crash call or a single company verdict. For Item 6, the practical lens is confirmation. Sector breadth, bond yields, energy futures, and earnings guidance must line up before a one-day move becomes a trend. Item 6 also needs household watch points, because gasoline costs, borrowing costs, and earnings guidance can pull the same index in different directions. Reuters and Washington Times Herald-style market wires make the consequence practical. Investors need confirmation before treating oil pressure and earnings weakness as durable, with viewers checking the chain from oil futures to sector breadth to earnings guidance before turning a session into a forecast for investors later today cautiously safely. Union representing IRS workers asks judge to block Trump tax audit immunity deal. AP, HuffPost, and local republications report that a workers' union is asking a court to stop an agreement affecting tax audit protections. The core issue is whether a judge finds that the arrangement conflicts with tax administration, worker interests, or the limits of executive authority. Because the dispute is legal, the next practical change will come from a docket entry, briefing schedule, temporary order, or agency response. Viewers should watch whether the court blocks the deal quickly or asks both sides for more evidence first. Until then, the confirmed development is a union challenge in court, with any effect on audits depending on what the judge orders. For Item 7, the practical lens is remedy. The complaint matters only if the judge pauses, narrows, or rejects the disputed arrangement in a dated order. Item 7 also needs workforce watch points, because union standing, taxpayer privacy rules, and management authority can each shape the court remedy. AP and HuffPost-style legal coverage make the consequence practical. Workers, managers, and taxpayers need an order before anyone changes audit procedures or protections. With viewers checking the chain from AP, HuffPost, Oskaloosa Herald, and KTVN complaint coverage to temporary order to agency compliance before assuming audit rules have changed in practice. Uganda approves sending troops for international force in Gaza. Reuters, the Los Angeles Times, the Washington Post, and AP report that Uganda has cleared participation in a proposed international force connected to Gaza. The approval matters because any deployment would require command arrangements, funding, rules of engagement, and coordination with humanitarian access, not just a political statement. The image uses peacekeeping logistics and staged vehicles to match that planning frame rather than showing combat as if deployment had already occurred. Viewers should watch for a published timetable, a named multinational mandate, or official details from Uganda and partner governments. Until those details are public, the development is a readiness signal for a possible mission, with many operational questions still open. For Item 8, the practical lens is mandate design. Troop numbers, command authority, civilian protection rules, and humanitarian coordination must become public before deployment is clear. Item 8 also needs civilian protection watch points, because aid access, border coordination, and troop discipline determine whether approval becomes a workable mission. That consequence matters for civilian safety, because a poorly defined force can complicate aid delivery, while a clear mandate can coordinate security and relief. With viewers checking the chain from parliamentary approval to mandate language to logistics timetable before assuming troops move into theater after authorization publicly. Russian strikes kill 6 in Ukraine as Moscow intercepts hundreds of drones. Al Jazeera France 24, The Washington Post, and The Times of India report deadly strikes in Ukraine alongside Russian claims about intercepting large numbers of drones. The story has two fronts: civilian harm and air defense pressure inside Ukraine, plus Moscow's account of what it stopped. Claims from either side need official statements, independent reporting, and casualty updates before viewers treat them as complete. Watch for regional emergency reports, military briefings, and follow-up counts from hospitals or local authorities. Until then, the confirmed picture is renewed escalation with casualties reported in Ukraine and contested claims about the wider drone exchange. For Item 9, the practical lens is verification. Local officials, independent reporters, and military briefings must reconcile casualty figures, interception claims, and damage assessments. Item 9 also needs humanitarian watchpoints, because rescue access, power restoration, and verified casualty revisions can change the public understanding quickly, especially overnight today. That consequence matters for civilians and diplomacy, because verified casualties, damage reports, and defense claims shape aid decisions and pressure for negotiations. With viewers checking the chain from local casualty report to military briefing to independent confirmation before assigning broader conclusions tonight across affected regions and capitals, and aid agencies now carefully, safely, openly, fully. Live updates, latest from Israel, Iran, and Middle East. Reuters, Al Jazeera, France 24, and the Jerusalem Post report a fast-moving regional file involving Iran, Israel, travel disruption, and diplomatic pressure. Live update coverage can mix analysis, official statements, and incremental claims, so the viewer should separate confirmed government actions from commentary about options. The most important next records are named statements from capitals, travel advisories, parliamentary votes, or maritime security notices that change risk for civilians and markets. The visual uses a crisis monitoring room to signal coordination and uncertainty, not battlefield footage. Until a dated official action changes the picture, the safest reading is that regional tension remains active and unresolved, with diplomacy, security, and public travel impacts all moving together. For Item 10, the practical lens is signal discipline. Separate confirmed orders, travel warnings, and diplomatic texts from rolling commentary that can change within hours. Item 10 also needs audience caution, because live blogs may mix diplomatic hints, confirmed closures, and unverified military claims in the same stream. That consequence matters for travelers, diplomats, and markets, because confirmed advisories or official orders can change risk faster than commentary can explain. With viewers checking the chain from official statement to travel advisory to maritime notice before treating live updates as settled tonight publicly, carefully, now safely.